back and bigger than ever. It's the unofficial 40 from Soonerscoop.com. Now, here's the entire Sooner Scoop crew. Carrie, Josh, Eddie, and Bob.
All right, welcome back. It is the unofficial 40 podcast brought to you by MidFirst Bank. Go check them out, midfirstbank.com/U40. Special deal on the OU Awards credit card. We'll tell you more about that as we go along, but want to welcome in Twitter Fingers, Josh McQuistion, Twitter Fingers, Eddie Radosevich, and Bob Prisbillo, who has been sitting safely on the sidelines. I've had some Twitter Fingers of my own, but I'm not apologizing for anything that has gone on in the last 24 hours. Chandler Morris commits to Oklahoma last night. Actually, had already signed with Oklahoma before he committed, and Josh was down in Orlando, had the exclusive interview with him that he released after he announced on television. So, Josh, I know you've been busy. Welcome. It's not your normal. You're on location with the family, I guess, today.
Yeah, I've gone from like high fidelity audio to I'm back to reel now. So, it's for all the people out there.
That's not sexy talk for me. I know you think that's sexy talk for me, but it's not.
Oh, I'm sorry. Carrie, I really thought that was going to be a home run for you.
I am impressed that you know what reel to reel is, though.
Yeah.
Of course, you interned at the sports
honestly,
animal.
I know what it looks like. Like, I know what it physically is, but I don't know anything beyond that.
It's because you interned at the sports animal where our equipment is 1,000 years old. And we still have those reel-to-reel machines there.
Wow. And that internship was 20 years ago. So, that all sounds about right.
Mm-hmm.
But no, the Chandler Morris story, it was something, and we teased it a little bit on the board back when it happened. And we got word on signing day that he had went ahead and signed and sent in his letter of intent. And, it wasn't so much that it was a huge surprise that OU would get Chandler Morris. It was just surprising that he did it when he did. And when I talked to him, and I can't remember because I have to own this, I did 2 takes of the Chandler Morris commitment interview. One was we forgot to record the audio, and so I had to go back and do it with him again. And both interviews were really good, and I can't remember what he talked about, but he did say in one of them, he goes, my dad taking the Auburn offensive coordinator job was a really good smokescreen for everything I was doing with Oklahoma. Like, everybody got so serious about the Auburn thing, but according to Chandler, that was never really that. I mean, it's something he considered, but it seems like it was very momentary. He kind of just moved on past it. I get the impression Virginia Tech was the other school that really caught his attention and was something he was pretty serious about and did take an official visit out there. So, there's a lot to that story, but, for those who haven't seen it, the story is free. We did a commitment video interview way back on Sunday during Under Armour check-in, and that's always a fun deal because, I don't know Chandler. Like, a lot of these kids, when they do these things, I know them pretty well. OU's been recruiting them for months and months. I've got a relationship. With him, I didn't have that, so I kind of had to – I was like, Chandler, is there anything maybe that the whole world doesn't know that you want to talk a little bit about? And he's like, no, I don't know what you mean. And I kept kind of like, really? Like, are you sure? And he kind of smiles finally. I'm like, okay. I was like, we can do this one of 2 ways. We can do the big fluff story where we talk about all the schools you're interested in, or we can walk down the hall from the media room here a little bit. And we'll kind of do a little different interview, and that way I don't have to call you on Wednesday night or Thursday night after the game and do another interview. And he's like, okay, let's go do that. He wanted to talk to me as little as possible. So, but yeah, no, it's a good get for Oklahoma. I actually got a message last night from a Dallas area high school coach that has played him the last couple of years and said, and this is a guy that's been in the coaching ranks for 25, 30 years, and said Chandler Morris is the most accurate quarterback I've seen in my time, working in the Nike camps, doing all the stuff he's done. He's been around a lot of good ones, and he thinks Chandler Morris is extremely underappreciated. He really likes this get for Oklahoma.
Well, and that's something that's important that you just said there because, when we went through kind of the Baker Mayfield era with Lincoln Riley, everybody always wanted to kind of get down to the bottom of what it was that made Baker Mayfield, able to be a walk-on, win the starting job, transfer to Oklahoma, win it again, lead a team to play. Like, what was it about this kid? And Lincoln Riley said time and time again, it's his accuracy. Like, he can do the things that he does. We can do the things that we do because he is one of the most accurate quarterbacks I've ever coached. And you hear that, and then you start looking at other people, and you see quarterbacks like Jameis Winston out there. You wonder why he has all the problems that he has. It's because he's not all that accurate all the time. And, of course, Baker hadn't had a great year. But in college for Lincoln Riley, if you're accurate, that's pretty much the bulk of the battle that you have to fight.
Well, absolutely. I mean, and you're right, because people are going to come back, well, Baker hadn't done great in the NFL. Well, the windows get smaller in the NFL. So not only do you have to be accurate, it has to get there in a hurry. So there's another step. It's another level to what you're having to do. And, I think we can get into the whole argument with Baker, but you're right. At the college level, and as Chandler Morris gets bigger and stronger and his arm continues to develop, I think he's one of those guys that, could be a much better player. Largely, I mean, to some degree, because he's going to be working with Lincoln Riley, he could be a much better player than maybe you look at his skill set and say, oh, he can't be that guy. I think he could be. I think he could be a very good player. Maybe, he sits for a couple of years, obviously probably behind Spencer Rattler, and then you kind of have that chance where everybody's going to say, oh, no, he's nothing. It's no big deal. And then maybe he could be that guy for you.
Are you sure that he's going to be learning under Lincoln Riley? Because on Wednesday, I was under the impression that he had told Brock Vandagriff that he was going to the Dallas Cowboys, and that's what started this entire series of events over the last 48 hours. Your response, Josh, and then obviously we got to talk about the 2021 decommit of Brock Vandagriff, because I think that anybody out there would say that was quite the surprise as far as basically going in a different direction. For the foreseeable future, I guess, at the quarterback position.
Absolutely, and we'll get into that. But can we talk about the stupidity of, and I don't even want to put this on OU fans. Like, we do a lot of redneck voice. This was like NFL draft media that were trying to connect Brock Vandagriff decommitting to, oh, well, Lincoln Riley's taking the job. Are you kidding me? Not Ian Rappaport, not Adam Schefter, not Bruce Feldman, the college rank, not us as a local media entity. Nobody's even heard that Lincoln Riley took an interview for a Dallas job that at that time was not currently open.
For all you know, Josh, Ian Rappaport did report that.
Nice.
You're right. You're right. Ian, it's time, buddy. Let it go. It was just a Michael Kendricks joke. It's fine. We can all move past it. And
you're blocked by the way.
All this has happened but you know what? Lincoln Riley's going to stop the train, and he's going to call Brock Vandagriff. And I think Eddie quoted it yesterday, like, oh, I really owe this to you. I really owe you to let you know, Brock, that I'm going to leave before I tell literally anyone else that I've even interviewed for this job. Like, that doesn't hold up to a second of scrutiny, and yet people ran with it like it was official news.
I think it's just one of those things that there's a lot of people, you see something on Twitter, you start to put two and two together, and from the outside looking in, if you don't follow recruiting, I could see how you get led down that path if what you want to believe or come to reality.
We had Rich Eisen out there in the middle of all that stuff.
That's
too.
The first time that Brock Vandagriff's name is, and this isn't a slight to Brock Vandagriff, that's the first time that Rich Eisen's ever heard that name.
Yeah.
Has to be.
Yeah.
There's a guy named Mike Fisher. He comes on my radio station in Oklahoma City, and he covers the Cowboys or whatever. And he wrote this big expose about Brock Vandagriff is a clue that the Cowboys are going to hire Lincoln Riley, and they very well could. And we could look like idiots. I still don't think that's going to happen, because I don't think Lincoln Riley's a son of a bitch.
They're not relatable.
He's not a son of a bitch human that has lied to a bunch of people. I don't think. But at the same time, it has nothing. They don't go together. This entire thing isn't some type of
They're not connected.
big conspiracy that Lincoln Riley has told his junior quarterback commit that he's taken the job, because then that wouldn't make sense with what a screw job he did to Chandler Morris.
Yeah.
Talking about Lincoln Riley.
Yeah, people, they're just looking to connect dots that aren't there. When you play terrible in the Peach Bowl, and then your 2021 quarterback decommits, everyone's like, oh, okay, because he's out the door. This all makes sense if you don't actually do any research, if you don't actually know what's going on. My thought has always just been Lincoln will leave when either he hates recruiting or when he has his best team assembled through his recruiting years, and they still don't win. He's not at that point. They've had good teams, but not the team that I think Lincoln Riley believes that this is the one that gets number 8.
I think he'll leave when he gets frustrated that OU won't let him have bag men, like to compete with the SEC.
Maybe that was the breaking point in Atlanta on Saturday. It doesn't make sense to me. That's obviously looking through it through an Oklahoma lens. Again, it's kind of what we just said. I don't think that he would have lied to all these recruits. But then again, I can't say that I just absolutely know Lincoln Riley either.
I didn't want to fuel the fire last night because, the first people to retweet the Chandler Morris stuff was the OU football account. And I thought, boy, Lincoln Riley, it's 20 minutes and Lincoln Riley still hasn't retweeted this. I was like, no, I'm not going to go there. I've already had enough jackasses out there. And that was the other thing. It was like people thought that Chandler Morris and Brock he committed to OU because of Vandagriff, just decommitted. They were never related. And I think all of us put some sort of
tried to, if anyone would read it.
But Bob was telling me before we came on, somebody was out there asking about it.
It's still in the mentions for people that don't follow it. They believe that this led to another, and it's like they do not correlate whatsoever.
Well, Chandler signed 2 weeks ago, and Brock Vandagriff was still a completely firm commitment. And, I guess we kind of lead that into the Vandagriff conversation. Guys, I can tell you, going into Wednesday morning when he called Lincoln Riley, there was no inclination that there was a problem there. Oklahoma thought that was done. They thought quarterback recruiting was done. That's why they had kind of cold-shouldered Caleb Williams when he came to Norman. This was not something where Oklahoma was like, yeah, we were a little shaky about him. This was a guy they thought was as locked in as anybody in the 20. I mean, he might as well have signed in December the way Oklahoma felt about him. They were completely caught off guard. And for people that will try to turn that into, well, they're not doing their – no. This is some random deal where he spent some time with family and decided he couldn't get that far from this family. Now, I mean, you can have the conversation of that's going to become an eventuality no matter where you go. But at the same time, I mean, that's the way the kid felt, that he wasn't sure in his college years he was going to be ready to be away from home, and that's what led to all this.
I think we've also gotten a little bit, not us, but just everybody as a whole has gotten wrapped up in this idea that, or forgotten the idea that Brock Vandagriff hasn't even finished his junior year of high school.
Yeah, by the time he actually signs, it's possible he signs with USC and declares emancipation from his family.
No,
There's
would
a
be
lot
something.
of time left.
That would be something. I would hand it to him.
Sign. It's a year now.
Now, there is nothing I'm getting from OU sources that tells me that Oklahoma really feels like they've got a chance. Like this feels like a decision he is firm on. But if I'm Oklahoma, I'm not closing that door yet. I mean, he was with you for 6 months, seemed as locked in as any guy ever, and then over a couple of weeks, everything changes. At some point, I almost want to think, okay, maybe we give this a month, and he gets back into his school life, and everything kind of normalizes, and maybe he realizes maybe this was rash. Maybe I need to come back and give Oklahoma at least another look. I don't think that's the way it's going to play. I'm going to bet he ends up at Georgia, but I think crazier things have happened.
I have an idea how to solve this. Get the bagmen to put the hottest, craziest young woman you can find to seduce him, and then just drive him insane to where he has to get away from Georgia. What's Chris Robinson's ex-girlfriend doing now? Is she
I was
still
going to say, we know just the lady for the job.
They're probably still together.
And Josh, you mentioned...
I think she's actually moving to Oxford with Lane Kiffin. He's taking her in.
Josh, you mentioned Caleb Williams, and it did feel like OU was in great standing with him in the summer. Now it looks like LSU kind of in the lead. Sooners go back here when the dead period's over, and you think they can make a real run at trying to change that course of action?
Well, I mean, and that's the tough part here, Bob, because these aren't guys that they can directly contact yet. So they still have to deal with all of that. I'm sorry, they can. I don't know why I got my wires crossed. They can, but you're right. I mean, Caleb Williams knows what happened on his visit, and it wasn't thought that it was ever going to matter. And I think to some degree, Oklahoma handled that as diplomatically as they could have, because we talked about it at the time. They want to go back into the D.C. area and recruit. They didn't want to poison the well where they've had a lot of success with Joseph Wette and Aaron Parks and Anton Harrison, that whole DMV area. So Oklahoma didn't really do him dirty, but they made it pretty clear Brock was our guy. So now they've got to try and kind of make up ground. I think that as long as he doesn't decide in the next couple of months, I think anything's possible. But at the same time, when he was wanting to make his decision, Lincoln Riley had 2 straight Heisman Trophy winners, and LSU was a dump heap for quarterbacks. Well, now Joe Brady is one of the most respected guys in the country, and obviously Lincoln Riley still is too, but LSU has plenty to stand on their own at this point. So I don't know how that's going to go. We'll kind of watch that one. What I will say is the guy that I really was surprised with how much interest there seemed to be was Demetrius Davis from North Shore in the Houston area. Guy, for those that don't follow, is the quarterback that's led North Shore to back-to-back state championships in Texas's biggest division. Is a 6-foot, probably 190 guy, very athletic, a better thrower than he gets credit for. But that's what surprised me is he isn't necessarily the next Baker Mayfield or the next Chandler Morris, that kind of vein of quarterback. He is a very much a dual threat guy. He's as adept running the ball as he is throwing it. And I kind of thought they would lean back towards that Spencer Rattler direction. But like I said, I got the impression there are some people that are very interested in him. But at this point, Williams is absolutely their focus, and they want to see if they can get back in that race.
And Davis committed to Virginia Tech, correct?
Recently, yeah. Yes. And I mean, you almost have to feel like this is the opposite of Brock Vandagriff. He can stay closer to home, go to Oklahoma. Texas already has their quarterback in that class. A&M already has their quarterback in that class. Oklahoma's clearly his most realistic option, unless Caleb Williams were to come to Oklahoma, and then you get LSU and OU probably changing roles in those two players' recruitment. So, like I said, we'll kind of see what happens here, but I didn't hear any mention of Preston Stone. I didn't hear any mention of Eli Stowers, the kid from Denton Geyer that's committed to A&M. Jalen Milroe, who is a teammate of one of OU's big defensive offers in the 2021 class. So I didn't hear any of those names really come up. Now, it's early, and like I said, this is not something that OU had been monitoring. They thought they were done at 2021 quarterback and were probably already thinking about who the 2022 option was going to be. So there is some catching up they're going to have to do here. But the first 2 names that were very clear were Williams and Davis.
Well, in terms of Chandler Morris now signing with Oklahoma, is he enrolling now, or is he still going to be at Highland Park this semester?
He'll still be at Highland Park. He's a summertime guy. I think, like I said, I just think he knew that Oklahoma is what he wanted to do, and it's incredibly fortuitous for both he and Oklahoma, because he obviously, when his father got fired at Arkansas, kind of got left, and it would be really easy for a guy that had, at various times, Oklahoma, USC, a lot of big-time offers, to have to end up at Virginia Tech. And I don't mean that as a slight, but that's just not the same level of national notoriety. But instead, he falls into Oklahoma, and Oklahoma, in turn, kind of falls into him when it looked like they were either going to have to pray that Tanner Mordecai or Spencer Rattler, whoever came out of that quarterback competition, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, isn't going to have to transfer or isn't going to transfer
or
get into the grad transfer market.
That's what I was getting at, bringing up Morris again. Look, Tanner Mordecai, the Peach Bowl, I mean, we are all shocked to see Spencer Rattler come into the game first as a backup, because that's not protocol. The protocol is, Tanner Mordecai has been your backup quarterback all year. He's been the first one to come into games. And then Spencer Rattler would get some mop-up after that. So Lincoln came out the next morning when he met with the beat guys and said, well, the reps weren't equal throughout the year, so I it was time to get him some. And he also said, if Spencer had converted that first down, then Mordecai was coming in the game, which I don't believe. I don't believe that. That would have been weird. I've never seen him do that before. So I mean, but the whole thing is like, and everybody's like, oh well, of course, Spencer Rattler. That's not a big deal. Everyone knows he's going to be like, no, he broke protocol. Like that is just not normal. So spare me your depth chart expertise, Bob 73459. Like,
hey, it's my burner.
Oh, that was you. That's fine. Let the grown-ups talk for a minute. Like it's fine. We all think that Spencer Rattler will be the starting quarterback next year. Nobody, if we all went to Vegas and we could place bets on it, we would all bet, I would assume, for Spencer Rattler over Tanner Mordecai to be the starter. Okay.
Depends what Tanner Schaefer does in 7-on-7 this year, this summer. For me.
Well, what if Spencer's shoulder falls apart? I mean, we've heard rumors of that happen in the summers before. You got to be careful.
I don't know if you listened to the post-game podcast from the Shit Show Bowl, is what we now term the Peach Bowl, even though they treated us very nicely. Let's not go through this charade again during the spring. Just name Spencer Rattler your starter. Please, I'm begging you.
Well,
especially when you're going to say things like he needed more reps, we wanted more opportunities. Give the young guy the reps, then. Like, he's your guy. We know it. There's no question. And I agree completely with everything Terry said. Like, that's why this was interesting. It would have been like the year Kyler Murray was Baker's backup, Austin Kendall suddenly comes in the game. Wait, what just happened? Like, what? There was no reason to do it. And and I'll let Kerry. I know you wanted to get into something else. Look at the reaction of Mordecai on the sideline. Did that look like a guy that was like, I'm about to go in the game? Come on, Spencer, get the first down so I can go do it. That clearly was not on his mind.
No, but he does have resting bitch face, though. He does. I mean, I've never seen him smiling and happy and jovial. Like he just has. I have it too.
With me, he really loved those.
I have it too. I mean, I have resting bitch face. It's an affliction, and he suffers from it. So I didn't read too much.
Some worse than mine the other day. It was really serious. I mean, that was extra RBF.
But look, there's no reason for Tanner Mordecai not to stay around in the spring and compete for the starting job. There's just no reason. I mean, you're going to have to sit out a year anyway. You could leave now, but you're still going to miss next football season.
Right. I think if you believe in that line, then he can graduate in 3 years and then have 2 years to play, just like Austin Kendall just did. There really is no legitimate logic as to why he would leave now.
So staying is really, to me, that's the only option that he has left. Let those two compete, see how it goes. I mean, maybe Spencer Rattler has issues picking this up or that up. And, the thing is, like, they're both going to be running the same offense now. I mean, Spencer Rattler's not going to be wasting any time on scout team.
Well, they don't have a schmuck running the quarterback position anymore.
I'm trying to connect the dots.
Well, the last quarterback was a schmuck.
Oh, I see.
I didn't see that coming. That was a plot twist.
Not running the quarterback, just the quarterback was a schmuck.
Yeah. The son of a bitch, Jalen Hurts.
Did you not get it?
No, I'm fully invested now. I think the one thing I'm going to not miss the most is the Alabama hangers-on that became experts on OU football overnight.
Yeah, anybody that welcomed OU Tony with open arms, you need to look yourself in the mirror.
I wasn't saying names.
I will.
I had one informing me yesterday on all the inner details of Josh Jacobs' recruitment.
Oh, boy.
I was like, well, that's great. You were involved in the last, 4 days of it. That's incredible.
It's just incredible. Josh, did you listen to the post-game thing?
I did.
Was I too harsh in my analysis of Jalen Hurts' time in Oklahoma?
The whole thing with and everybody loves that speech, and I know we got a lot of views out of it, and that's great. That's great for, our brand. But the whole thing about, I told Coach Riley I was going to come in here and win a national championship for him. Whoa. What about your history tells you could make that promise? That's not something you've done. You got benched and somebody else took care of the job. Like, and I, guys, I heard you guys talking about the SEC just reverence for him, and I asked a few of the guys while I was at the Under Armour game, and then again at the All-American game in San Antonio, like, where does this come from? And it was just kind of like, he's just such a nice kid, and he's so respectable, and blah blah. And I get that he is those things, but it's let everybody in the SEC just be blinded to the fact that if he played at, I think you guys, Kerry, you may have said it in the postgame, like if he played at Vanderbilt, nobody would remember him. Nobody would remember who he is, or if he'd gone to Vanderbilt and Kansas, it's not like he would have taken those programs to different heights. He would have just been another guy that lost a bunch of games.
Yeah.
And I think that people will hear us say that, or at least hear me say that, and it's like, oh, they're just shitting on this guy because he didn't win a college football playoff. But at the same time, he didn't really exactly endear himself to anybody. And I think that, if you look, and I'm not saying that the teammates didn't like him, because I don't think that it was a thing that just to throw a name. I'm not even going to throw a name. I don't think that the players on the team hated him by any means. But I also don't think
sometimes the receivers did.
Yeah, I would say that, especially when you're
moments for sure.
Especially when you're the best wide receiver in the country and there's nobody around you within 15 yards and they don't even look at you once in the second quarter. But that's neither here nor there. It didn't strike me as somebody that really got the team behind him in a way, if that makes sense.
He did a better job from January to August than he did from August to December.
Perfectly said.
That's a good way to say it.
Really, I mean, there were two different Jalens. There was Jalen before Texas and Jalen during Texas and after. Like, that's when we first saw, like, okay, well, Texas was the first time you're like, okay, well, it was at Kansas and somebody asked him about, playing in OU Texas. He's like, I played the Iron Bowl. I think I'll be okay. And then halfway through that game, I'm like, really? Are you okay, Jalen? Because you're kind of sucking. You're kind of a reason why OU might lose this game. Like, when the stage got big and the lights got bright, he didn't do it. He didn't do it at all.
Well, and
except
Eddie
for at Baylor.
Like, it's us shitting on him because he didn't win the national title or didn't win the playoff game or whatever. We've been saying this for a month. Like, this whole narrative that he was carrying Oklahoma. No, Oklahoma's defense and running game was dragging him through the rest of the season. Like, that's been happening really since the Kansas State game.
I think that was the biggest narrative that drove Bob and I crazy down in Atlanta was that Jalen Hurts had carried this team into a playoff.
Oklahoma with his presence.
It wasn't true. It just wasn't true. Nothing about that was true.
He was dragged into the playoffs by the team.
What game did Oklahoma win that they wouldn't have won without Jalen Hurts? Whether it's Mordecai, Rattler, whatever argument you want to make, what game did they win that they wouldn't have won without him?
Baylor on the road.
The reason that's hard to say is Hurts had 3 turnovers of his own.
He was fantastic in the second half.
They were put in that 28-3 hole because of what he did.
I think that he got him out of the hole, but he dug it.
Yeah.
That's what's tough.
As a whole, I think that you can say both are true, that the experience probably wasn't the best, but I think it was needed in a way. I do think that Jalen Hurts plays a role as far as building some type of maturity within Spencer Rattler. I think it was good to be around him. I think you said that on the postgame podcast, Kerry. I just, the people that wanted Spencer Rattler to take over halfway through the season, I don't think it was right, and I certainly don't think he should have in the semifinal game or anything, but because they obviously had much larger problems on the other side of the ball. But I do think that it was probably worth it. I don't think that I would go as far to say that it was just completely not worth it to bring him in.
He was only going to get benched if the goal of winning a national championship had been completely stripped away. Like, answer me this: like, let's say Jalen Hurts had never transferred in, and you go out there and Austin Kendall is the quarterback. Would Austin Kendall have survived the year? Would Spencer Rattler have eventually become the starter?
I think Spencer Rattler might have won the job out of camp, to be honest. I mean, the way that Austin Kendall played in Morgantown,
he would have got killed by that line too early.
And I think with Rattler, there's 2 ways to look at it. To me, the only way you start him is if you start him from game 1 and let him grow through the year. Like, because the idea that you were going to bring him in at mid-season when he's been running scout team and all that, and he was going to have time when Oklahoma hit the best part of their schedule as far as most quality opponents, he was going to be ready. That's not realistic. That has no place in reality. What the other thing I'll say is this idea, I don't know about Jalen Hurts being good for Spencer Rattler. Like, I think he probably was, but I think the idea of Spencer Rattler having to sit for a year, mature a little bit, kind of learn that, okay, you're not the savior of this program. You're another guy. You're a good player. We'll plug you in when we're ready. I think that's probably something he needed to know. Him coming in and starting from day one, I think it would have been really easy for Spencer to maybe fall into some of the ego traps that can happen to a young guy, especially a young quarterback as talented as he is and with as much expectation as everyone had for him.
By the way, I want to get back to this, but remind you guys that the MidFirst Bank is our podcast sponsor, presenting sponsor for the Unofficial 40. Want to check out their website, midfirst.com/U40. That's midfirst.com/U40. They've got a new offer going this month. Of course, the OU Rewards credit card, you can go apply for it. And if you apply in person at participating banking centers, you'll receive a free Bluetooth speaker when you sign up for the card. You have a low introductory rate for first 12 months. You can redeem rewards for points, for cash back, gift cards, merchandise, travel. There's no annual fee. And also, this is important for you parents out there, you can redeem points for the OU student bursar account to pay for tuition. So not a bad card to maybe get your kids and send them off to college with.
I know my parents were familiar with paying off a bursar account.
Yeah. Same. Yep.
I think any parent that has put a kid through school at OU is well aware of the bursar
I was
account.
at the bursar's office many a time. I don't even know if it's in the same place anymore.
I don't even know if I ever went over there.
Right across from the Union.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where it was when I was in school.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
In that building, like separate from the Union.
It was like a dark, dreary place that you didn't like going into.
Mm-hmm.
Take that check from your parents and all the guilt that came along with it. Because you probably had a bad semester too, like me.
You know, during the Gallagly era, they had like a big head and his mouth was just open and you put the check in his mouth.
It was like a nutcracker for cash.
Yeah.
The Gallagly era, that lengthy period of time.
That 12-month period.
It was a dark 12, 13 months.
So go to
They had it finished
midfirst.com.
for about a month before he was gone.
Even Bourne wasn't getting asked during that time.
Go to midfirst.com/U40 and maybe they'll have the James Gallagly machine there. They'll have him left over.
Let us know.
You can that'd be awesome if you could pay your credit card statement, like scan it into his. I don't know. I want to. Okay, that's good. Moving on.
Thanks, MidFirst.
Thank you, MedFirst, for not canceling your sponsorship. Go sign up, people. All right, so I mean, outside of signing day coming up, I guess the big thing, Josh, being in Orlando, anything with Alfred Collins, anything with Reggie Grimes that was making the rounds while you were there?
Well, Josh has been in Orlando and San Antonio.
And San Antonio, yes.
Sure.
A little double
Sure. With Reggie in Orlando, I think I want to, and we'll kind of go into the recruiting side of it, but as a player, I think people came in maybe with the expectation that Reggie Grimes is going to be a little disappointing, and I think they got the opposite. I think Reggie Grimes impressed some people. I don't know, I know you fans are going to hear this and, immediately go to Twitter. Well, Josh McCuistion says he's going to jump to 5 stars. I'm not saying that. Do I think he holds steady, maybe moves up a little bit? Yeah, I think that's possible. I think he had a good week. I think he impressed some people. Is big, long, athletic. I mean, this is the kind of guy OU hasn't signed a lot of in the last few years. This is a, Ronnie Perkins, Neville Gallimore. I mean, of that caliber that you say, okay, if he'll put it all together, the NFL's in his future. So it's all there for Reggie Grimes. He can be a very good player. But to the guy you really want to, that I think is more interesting as far as what's going on with him is Alfred Collins in San Antonio. Alfred Collins, just every time I see him, he gets bigger and more impressive. And I think he came in at 6'5" 3/4 and like 284 or something, and is one of the more he's playing defensive end, he's playing tackle. They move him around a lot. It's very, very interesting to kind of watch him work. And I think he is a guy that, I talk a lot about guys I think are going to be better than we think. That's a guy that I think has first-round NFL talent. Alfred Collins is special if it all comes together. And I don't get the impression he's a kid with a work ethic problem. He does all the little things. He's, every coach I've heard deal with him really likes him, got good reviews from the staff there in San Antonio. So he's a guy that's really promising. I still think OU leads. There's been a lot of buzz about Texas this week. I think a lot of that is coming from there's Texas commitments. There's a lot more of them in this game. Oklahoma only has Jalen Conyers in this game. Texas has Bijan Robinson. They've got several others. And I think you've got this where all the media are around these Texas players are like, oh, we're getting him. Those kids don't know Alfred Collins from anybody. Like, he is a quiet, reserved kid. He's not telling those kids what he's doing any more than he's telling me or other reporters he's known for just as long. That he is just going to keep it under his hat. I think Oklahoma's in good shape. I think the rumors around Matt Rule at Baylor, with those seeming to pick up some steam, you're hearing these talks of, anybody that has Baylor connections, you might want to start looking at them for a resume, that kind of thing. I think Oklahoma's in good shape here. Alabama's going to make a real run. He's going to take a trip probably to all four schools, barring, whatever happens at Baylor. But Alabama, Texas, Oklahoma, and Baylor are his current plans to take unofficial visits before the next signing day, and then we'll kind of see what shakes out with him. But I like where Oklahoma is with him a lot because he has such a strong relationship with Lincoln Riley. That's clearly the head coach he knows the best, the one he talks to the most. In between all these trips to Dallas, Lincoln Riley continues to call Alfred Collins a lot.
That's interesting. I find that maybe he's just going to go pro.
It's
possible.
Maybe we can convince him to move to Thackerville, just so that he's from Oklahoma.
They have big houses in Thackerville. He could build one right next to Blake Shelton and Gwen Stefani.
I thought they lived in Tecumseh.
No, they live in Thackerville, right on the border. Tishomingo.
Yeah, Tishomingo.
Same difference. It's a
It's a T.
Tishomingo is nowhere near Thackerville.
Is it not?
No, it's not. Sorry.
It's like going out towards like Holdenville, I think.
But it's on the border, right? Is Tishomingo on the border?
No.
It's not? Can't say I've ever been to Tishomingo.
It's like Ardmore level-ish.
Okay.
It's like between Ardmore
I'd
and
say Ardmore's on the border.
Like Ada, I think. Over by Ada, kind of.
Either way, I'm never going, so it doesn't matter.
We're probably totally wrong, and everybody's going to be like,
We're going to rip us.
Tishomingo is in northeast Oklahoma, you dumbasses.
I know for
There
a fact
are
it's
7
not.
Tishomingo listeners that are pissed right now.
Josh, there was one thing I want to
It's right by Murray State.
clarify.
The lake?
Murray State College.
Is that by Murray Lake?
Yeah, I don't know where Murray State College is either.
It's in Tishomingo.
Well,
We've come from.
we
Solved
solved
nothing.
I don't know what lake this is. Tishomingo National Wildlife Refuge. It's not even showing up on Google Maps. I'm sure there's a couple dead bodies down there, though.
All right, Josh. Since they're both looking.
Tishomingo is straight east of Ardmore, by the way.
There you go.
Go ahead, Bob.
Oh, nice. Hey, Terry, well done,
yeah.
sir.
I thought that I've driven through Tishomingo many times.
So I wanted to clarify. You mentioned unofficial visits. Does he have any official visits to take? Like, could he go to Bama?
He has already taken an official to Bama, so that one he can't take. I want to say he's got one left, but I think he's used them to all the schools he's currently considering, so it doesn't really matter unless someone were to get involved. But, I mean, at this point in the game, and Collins is a guy that's big on relationships, and I think that's why Alabama is a threat, but maybe not as scary as they would be in some situations because they really cooled on him through the winter months as Alabama was trying to figure out what was going to happen. And I think they missed out on a guy or two they wanted and ended up having a spot for him. And I still think it's a little dependent on what happens at some other positions. I don't think Alfred Collins is a guy that is number one on Alabama's list and they're going to go all out, that kind of thing. I mean, he's a guy they want, but not a guy they have to have. As to where Oklahoma, I think I don't know if they sign another guy on the second signing day, if Alfred Collins doesn't end up at Oklahoma. Like, I don't think they are set that they have to have another guy. So that'll be interesting to watch. I think we'll get into the grad transfer market a little bit. That seems like where I think you're going to see a little more action from Oklahoma over the next few months than the signing day period. I think it's going to be more grad transfer work.
Which is interesting because you look at Oklahoma's defensive line and Ronnie Perkins' situation, and I certainly don't think that Alfred Collins, and correct me if I'm wrong, Josh and Bob, that I don't think he'd be a guy that comes in and gives you immediate impact. He'd probably have to grow a little bit into his body, just from what I can tell from the Army Bowl stuff. But it would seem that they need. I mean, what is the grad transfer market at a defensive tackle position? Right. Is there somebody out there that could come in and help? Because you obviously have Joshua Elliott and Perrion Winfrey are guys that are probably going to help. You have a couple guys coming back in Jalen Redmond and that group, but at the same time, they need difference makers.
Yeah, and I think Collins is a guy probably not unlike Perkins as a freshman that played some,
Sure.
wasn't always on the field, but definitely a guy that can help you rotationally. But I agree. I mean, he's not Jadeveon Clowney going to show up and have 12 sacks next year. That's not what you expect. But what I will say, is kind of interesting from him, and it's something I had heard from a few people. Under Chris Ash, the expectation is Texas is going to go to a four-man front. Well, in a four-man front, Alfred Collins is not a defensive end. And Collins literally told me the other day he prefers defensive end to defensive tackle. Now, OU's ends are, they're squeezed inside a little more than other positions, but he's going to play wider in OU's scheme than he would in Texas's. And I think that's another advantage Oklahoma has. Now, there's plenty going for Texas, his family connections, all that sort of thing. But there are things for a kid that pays attention like Alfred does that can help Oklahoma. So we'll kind of watch that. But, Eddie, you're right. The problem is in the grad transfer market, really good defensive linemen don't grad transfer. They go to the NFL draft.
Exactly.
So there's just not a big market for them.
Touché,
so that's going to be – and Oklahoma's going to have to juggle that. I mean, because if Perkins is gone as long as we think he is, they're just going to have to figure out some guys. Some guys are going to need to step up. Isaiah Thomas is going to have to be more consistent. Those kind of things. Yeah. But there are some bodies there. There's some talent there with guys like Corey Roberson. You hope Marcus Hicks can kind of make a step.
Jordan Kelly. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, Jordan, like I said, I've said this a lot of times. I have more than one person that has told me going into the season before Jordan Kelly hurt himself, he would have been the backup to Neville Gallimore, not Marquise Overton. So, make of that what you will. That, a lot of people can, that's easy to say after someone's injured. We really believed in him. We thought he was going to be a good player. We'll see where Jordan Kelly is in his return, but there is optimism for him. They think he can be a good player. And then you got Winfrey why am I blanking on Josh's name?
Joshua Elliott?
I don't know why I just went somewhere else with him.
Because we're saying it wrong. It's Ellison.
Ellison.
Elliott. It starts with an E.
Yeah.
Tishomingo
I messed that up.
Same damn place.
So I'm blaming that one on Eddie.
Yeah, that is my fault.
But, when you look at those three, that's a really good inside rotation if that's what it ends up being. And if Ellison can come and be a guy and you've got Ellison and Kelly, well, then you can move Winfrey around. If he's best at nose, great. But he's kind of a longer, leaner guy. Like maybe he slides out to end and can be some better quality depth out there where you've lost Ronnie Perkins. There's a lot of ways you can go with it. And I think that defensive line is kind of trying to become like what we always talk about with the offensive line, where they have parts that can move around kind of based on what they need.
Real quick before we get in, I have a state of the program question I want to ask you, Josh. Just fallout from the Peach Bowl, but real quick before we move on to that, Orlando, just kind of putting a wrap on the Under Armour game. What did you think of Andrew Rame, Anton Harrison, and Nate Anderson?
Well, it was our first chance to really see Andrew Rame work at center, and I watched a good chunk of the game last night, and it's hard not to see a future for him there. I mean, it's kind of one of those things where we've projected it for a while, like, okay, that could work, and it would make sense, especially if Creed Humphrey comes back this year. He could redshirt or have the 4 games, do whatever, and then going into 2021, he really has an open competition with EJ and Ndoma Ogar at that center spot, and whoever wins, you feel pretty good about. I mean, I know I heard a lot of optimism about Ndoma Ogar through the season, that there was a lot of feeling that he was coming along maybe even faster than Oklahoma had hoped. And, I've said this before, I can tell you that a couple of staffs around the country thought Andrew Rame was one of the top 2 or 3 offensive linemen in the country, period. I mean, not positionally, not in a region, just flat out is one of the best guys. And like I said, I saw a lot of good from him. Nate Anderson is another guy that I think really impressed people. I will say it's funny seeing Nate around guys like Anton Harrison, because you're like, wow, he's kind of small. Like, Anderson needs time. But he's 6'3", 6'3.5", and 260, and Anton Harrison's almost 6'6" and about 320. It's a very different-looking human being. But Anderson could play left tackle. He could be a center possibility. There's a lot of people that like him there with his footwork and quickness. Would be more of kind of like a Gabe Eicher, Ty Darlington type center. He's not going to be the massive road grader like Creed or like Rame could be, but it just kind of depends on what Oklahoma likes there. And Anton Harrison, finally kind of last guy in that group, I really like him. I think he's one of those guys that goes forgotten because Aaron Parks is more highly rated. Andrew Rame's more local. Nate Anderson, again, is more highly rated. Harrison's kind of slid under the radar a little bit, but he's a guy with good feet. His senior tape was really good. I think he's one of those guys that really could be he could be that right tackle for 2 or 3 years and really be a good one.
By the way, you mentioned EJ and Domogar. I don't know that we really talked about this, and maybe I mentioned it on the board. I mean, that week was such a blur, the Peach Bowl. But you know who kind of came out of bowl practices being the most impressive is Marcus Alexander. Did we talk about that?
I think you guys. I think we DM'd about it, but I don't think we talked or you guys talked about it through the week.
So I made sure to talk to him at media day.
Oh yeah,
because of it.
Okay. Which Bob snuck around. He's got a bunch of stuff with the freshmen coming to keep an eye out for on Sooner Scoop.
I didn't need to
professional tees.
I didn't need to talk to Kenneth Murray or Parnell Motley again or Jalen Hurts.
You know, somebody
use the freshman time.
It was kind of interesting. I get to talk to my guys on the radio and get their kind of feel for what their concerns are, and I always find it interesting because sometimes with the a casual fan base, you get questions and they have all these concerns that maybe sometimes shouldn't be concerned. And one of the things that was asked of me this morning was like, well, God, what's OU going to do to replace Kenneth Murray? Like, how will they ever replace that? Well, they've got 2 weak side linebackers. They'll just move, Deshaun White to middle linebacker, and then they got Caleb Kelly. So, and they were baffled by that response because they really thought that there were no linebackers in this program because that's all they've heard about forever. And yes, if one of those guys gets hurt, you got a little issue on your hands. But to me, and we talked enough about it already, but the defensive line is the biggest glaring hole, to fill for the defense next year, other than safety depth, of course.
Yeah, I still have more questions in the secondary than I do at defensive line. I think defensive line has nice young pieces that just kind of have to come along. I think Corey Roberson's one of those guys that's been forgotten a little bit. I think he's going to be a really good player before it's all said and done. If Oklahoma had needed him, I think he could have played this year. I think it was kind of a luxury they got to redshirt him. But in the secondary, you still look at those pieces. Guys, as you look around that starting five, and if you want to put Norwood at nickel or Radley Hiles, however you want to look at that, how many of those guys start for a national championship caliber team?
Well, I think the thing you're forgetting is 2 of those guys are from Oklahoma, so they're fine.
Well, obviously, and like I said, if you want to list Broyles in the starting lineup, I know you guys, from what I heard in the postgame pod, are all kind of into that idea.
He cares about this state and this university, Josh. It matters.
It does. God, and Kerry, I couldn't agree with you more. I don't like saying it about Justin. He's an outstanding kid, and
it sucks. It's a shitty situation, right, Josh. Yep. I think we all agree.
It is. Yeah, the people that push this Oklahoma agenda, they're doing it for an agenda. It's not because they know about what talent is like in all these other states, but you can't hamstring yourself with this idea that, well, because they care more, it's going to matter that they don't run as well as the kid Oklahoma could have got from California or Texas or Jersey or, again, like all the guys that are landing in the D.C. area right now. Those guys are better players. And
Alabama and LSU and Georgia those teams are not recruiting in-state kids for feel-good stories. They're recruiting the best players that they can possibly recruit. And if they're coming from in their own borders, that's great. They love that. They would love to recruit, every kid. Like Mac Brown recruited every kid from Texas. He just did. And they could do that. And they had enough players to do that. Now, he even got criticized for being too, Texas-centric and not going outside.
Sure.
And every time they tried, who was the running back that locked Jason Sucamel out of his party? Scott, was that his name? That went to Colorado?
Oh, yeah, from years ago. From
Christian
From
Scott?
Los Angeles. Daryl Scott.
Daryl
Scott, yeah.
Yep.
So, they would have those happen every once in a while, but it's like you have to recruit on the level of Alabama, of LSU, of Clemson, of Georgia right now. You can't worry about, possibly if this kid might be able to play for you, like his intangibles are going to make this team better. No, you just want the best possible players. And you're not going to stay in step with LSU and Alabama recruiting a lot of Oklahoma kids. You're just not.
No, and you can bring all these examples of great Oklahoma players. That's fine. Curtis Lofton, Gerald McCoy, all these guys. Oklahoma didn't hesitate recruiting those guys. They offered them early and were after all of them. People I say, well, look at the guys that got away. OU was Dax Hill's first offer. Josh Proctor's first offer, Oklahoma. Andrew Raym, his first offer, Oklahoma. And obviously Andrew didn't get away, but Oklahoma doesn't hesitate on the guys that you can't hesitate on. They hesitate on the guys that are marginal that other schools wouldn't be recruiting in their home state either, because I've talked about this forever, guys. Tennessee can come in and offer a kid in Oklahoma. Oregon can come in and offer a kid in Oklahoma. LSU, same deal, because those kids didn't grow up dreaming of playing for Oregon or LSU or Tennessee. They grew up dreaming of playing for Oklahoma. It's the same thing for Tennessee in their own home state. Oklahoma can go make earlier offers there because those kids didn't grow up dreaming of playing in Norman. They wanted to play for Tennessee. That's just the way this is. If you make an in-state offer, you have to be ready to take that kid. And if you're ready to take him, that means you know that you cannot sign a more talented player from anywhere else in the country. That's a decision you have to make, or otherwise you're hurting your talent. You're taking a lesser player. And if there's no good reason to do so, if the kid's not a problem, if there's no obvious choice, why would you do that? Who takes a less talented person? Like if I offered somebody out there $500 or $1,000 and there's no strings attached to either one, who would take the $500? You're going to take the $1,000. That's just common sense. If you can get a better player that fits you better, that is all the things you need, why would you take the local guy just because he's local? That doesn't make any sense. That's not something that holds up to practical analysis. That's just fanboying, want to try to create a storyline that doesn't exist.
It's almost like you've done this for 20 years, Josh.
And guys, like, you guys know I love Oklahoma high school football. I love all this, but you can't name me more than one or two guys that Oklahoma flat out has not recruited. Don't talk about the guys that they didn't get. Oklahoma can't control who comes and who doesn't come. But you can't name me a guy or more than a guy or two that they flat out didn't recruit, went somewhere else, and Oklahoma truly regretted it. People bring up Wes Welker. Oh, you had Mark Clayton during Wes Welker. Mark Clayton was a better college player than Wes Welker was. And it's really not even a debate.
That's your opinion. Are you? Did you see my tweet this morning? I asked you a simple question, and you can't even give me the response back. So you're telling me that Mason Fine wouldn't have started in front of Baker Mayfield or Kyler Murray?
I feel pretty good about that, Eddie. I'm not going to lie. And you know what? He wouldn't have beat out Jalen Hurts either.
Somebody brought up this morning to me.
I don't know. Mason Fine can throw the ball.
Somebody brought up to me this morning Ryan Broyles, and I said I had a pretty simple answer to it. I was like, well, yeah, that was a serious evaluation problem, because look at the receivers that OU had when they were hemming and hawing and trying to decide whether they wanted to offer Ryan Broyles. They had DeJuan Miller, Adrian Tennell, who I thought was a great high school player, but he sucked in college. He was terrible.
I'd say Adrian had, how do I say this, Football wasn't the most important thing in his life.
And it showed.
Yes.
But who else was?
It wasn't what I'm trying to say. It wasn't a talent thing.
Yeah.
I think the talent was there. He just didn't ever extend himself.
They had Cam Kenny, who made one play in his entire career in Bedlam, and then stole a purse. And there was some other guy that was just a rando. I'm sorry, but Jay Norvell did a terrible job of evaluating receiver talent.
What about Dan and Cavill?
Yeah, Dan and Cavill. I mean, Josh can remember this list better than me.
Dallas
Look
Todd.
at who they lost to get Ryan Broyles. James Kirkendall flipped on him from, as an Austin area kid, flipped to Texas from Oklahoma, and they suddenly had a spot with 2 weeks to go before signing day. So they went and got Ryan Broyles. Nobody remembers James Kirkendall other than the die-hardest of Texas fans. Ryan Broyles ended up breaking all kinds of records. I'm not telling you Oklahoma's evaluations in state have always been on point, but I'm just telling you they've lost very few guys that would have made any difference to that program.
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
And not even fair. It's a fact.
And the fact that you can even name one or two tells you how little number there really is.
Exactly.
Because if there's so many.
Remember that 2009 season? They literally could not find someone to catch a football. Ryan Broyles was the only player on that roster that could consistently catch a ball when it was thrown to him.
Mm-hmm.
They needed to get Kenny Stills in there to have a second receiver.
As a freshman.
And that was when they were throwing 570 times a game, which does not mean that Ryan Broyles is a better player than CeeDee Lamb.
Yes. They lost Sam, and they had to go to a 5-wide. Kevin Wilson was smart enough to say, okay, well, Landry Jones is just a statue. We're gonna go to shotgun exclusively. We're not gonna do all this, no huddle, make DeMarco Murray play action stuff. We're just dropping back and throwing the ball. And he put out 5 receivers, and only one of them could catch. And it was an awful season to watch of football. That was the year when Ryan Broyles scored against Texas Tech. They were down 40 points, it seemed, and he's celebrating from the 15-yard line in taunting Texas Tech players. Down 40, flags go everywhere, and Bob Stoops wore him out on the sideline like I've never seen him wear anybody out.
How's that game?
I still think that Nebraska game that year may have been the ugliest football game I've ever watched.
Yep. Awful. Well, it did, that was the start of the biggest man crush in college football history. Josh McCuistion and Ndamukong Suh. Yeah.
Well, he nearly ended people's lives that day.
He was awesome.
He won the game for him.
He was awesome. Yeah.
It was unbelievable.
I don't know. I think we put the Oklahoma thing to rest. It's just such a dumb pandering.
I don't want to drag that out.
The thing you can't take 5 per year just cause.
Yeah,
that's not how it works. There's years where there's 6 or 7. There's years when there's 2 or 3.
It's like saying
that's okay.
If Jaden Hazelwood had played high school football in Oklahoma, he would have been the number 1 guy, no question, 5-star in Oklahoma. That never happens. And that's the type of player you're talking about going to get. It's it's easy to sit there and say, well, you should take more Oklahoma kids when you're not actually out there seeing what is available. I mean, kids at the Under Armour game, that is a different planet. When you go, tell me this, when you go to an Oklahoma high school football game and you see Ethan Downs or something, I mean, you see the size that he has compared to most of every kid on that field. There's just no comparison. There's a reason why one kid looks like a man amongst boys, because this level of football is not the same as it is in Texas and Florida.
Well, we talked about it before too, as well. It's as simple as this. It's because little Johnny records 35 tackles a game at Hera doesn't mean he's going to be the next middle starting linebacker at Oklahoma.
Yeah,
sure.
That's as simple as I can put it.
There's no question there is an underappreciation for Oklahoma talent, but we're talking about guys that should be at Iowa State, Kansas, things like that. Guys that can help Oklahoma at the level they want to play at are few and far between in the state of Oklahoma. That's just the reality of it. There's not that many guys that can play at the level Oklahoma needs them to.
That's why it takes you 15 years, a period of 15 years to get 9 guys to put on a page.
Yeah, while LSU has probably 4 guys in their current roster from the state of Louisiana who are going to be first-round picks. That's not a diss. That's just the reality of it. Oklahoma doesn't produce talent on as high a level. And when they do, those kids go to Oklahoma and become first-round picks. I mean, you look at it, through the last 20 years, I was trying to think about it. There are two guys from the state of Oklahoma that were first-round picks that didn't go to Oklahoma, Josh Jacobs and Justin Blackmon. Oklahoma recruited both those guys. Now, Josh Jacobs, I think they waited way too long on. I'm behind that argument. But it doesn't change that Oklahoma was on the same schedule as everybody else. Like, you can't diss OU for being right where everybody else was. Going into January of that year, he had a Wyoming offer. He was going to go to Wyoming. And then everybody figured out, oh, crap, this guy's really, really good. And they dealt with it. I'm not here to argue that OU handled that the way they should have. They didn't. But you can't say, well, Alabama recruited him harder. Alabama wasn't sure he had an offer until his signing day ceremony. Like, you can't have that both ways.
Is Oklahoma closer to a national championship at this point than they were a year ago, Josh?
Yeah. They have an idea of what they want to do on defense. Their talent is getting better on that side of the ball. Obviously, Kenneth Murray and Neville Gallimore are huge losses, but that's what happens when you're playing at the level Oklahoma needs to. You're losing draft picks to the NFL draft every single year, and they've got better personnel. Ronnie Perkins is going to be a high draft pick. Jalen Redmond has a chance to be that kind of guy. LaRon Stokes is probably an eventual NFL draft pick. They've got a lot of pieces, and I think Caleb Kelly, I really liked what I saw of Caleb Kelly down the stretch. I don't think a lot of people have talked about that, but I thought he played at some of his best football over those last 4 games. In the secondary, I think we all know I love Turner Yell. I'm not saying he's a big NFL draft pick, but I asked that question earlier. He's the only guy in that secondary that I say you could win a national championship with that guy playing that position. He's the only one in that group I could make an argument for. And, I mean, and like
you
I
mean
said,
for next year? Because that's them fighting words with Motley.
No, yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah. Going into 2020, no, Motley. I mean, people kind of left out that Motley just shut down Jamar Chase. He was not part of that game at all.
They didn't need to throw at him.
I mean, now, he didn't necessarly have to be.
Not when they were letting Randy
right.
Moss's kid run 50 yards behind the defense without anybody covering him.
Yeah, I mean, Louisiana 3-star versus Oklahoma 4-star. I mean, I don't know what to tell you.
Well, yeah.
God, I'm sorry, Justin. That was mean. I'm sorry. That was wrong.
I think, just like I've kind of been saying, just now getting back to the type of quarterback that Lincoln thrives under in Spencer Rattler. You're going to have this young receiving corps finally going to kind of get to eat, as the kids say. I think Jaden Hazelwood could make a really big jump next year. I think Theo Wees will make a big impact, and then we'll see what happens with role players like Drake Stoops and things like that. But offensively,
All-American.
Offensively, they're going to be good again. Really good.
I'm telling you, I've already made the call. I think Drake Stoops starts next year. I am making that call.
Yeah, I mean,
lock you in January 3rd.
It kind of has to. Jones is gone. Basquin's gone.
Mm-hmm.
Bridges will probably miss the first 5 games. It's going to be Drake. And the question will be, does Rambo stay with the 5 stars, or do those guys eventually pass him?
I don't, man. I'll say this. Like, there was one play in that game where Rambo had the ball in space, and he just ran right into a guy.
I thought it was going to go. I said in the press box, ooh, that might go for a touchdown. Didn't even get a first down.
His elusiveness is troubling as a receiver in space.
Meanwhile, bigger guys like Hazelwood and Weiss are shaking guys and making all kinds of moves as freshmen. I mean, I think it's a crime if those two don't start next year.
I kind of floated it out there earlier, but you've put something up on the Crimson Corner this morning, Josh. How active is Oklahoma going to be in that grad transfer market, specifically at the skill position?
Well, I mean, I think they're about as locked in as they could be with UCLA grad transfer Theo Howard. He's, we got to give our guy Stoops Bros on the board credit. He searched the OU database, and he's already in the OU.edu database. Now, there's no way that's a coincidence. This is a guy that was a near 5-star coming out of high school, left UCLA with all their problems. Didn't play. They played one game. Actually played against Oklahoma.
OU. I know that was the only game.
Eddie, is this more of the scouting story? We got to explore this a little bit. Was Lincoln Riley, was that a tryout again?
That's a good question, and something that didn't really come to mind until you said that. So, yeah.
Lincoln Riley up to his old tricks. But, no, this is a guy.
Running this thing like a pro team makes you wonder. Is he have a foot out the door?
He'll be catching passes from De'Aaron King this time next year. I mean, all the scouting comes together. But no, this is a guy, like I said, from everybody I've talked to, not everything is finalized. It doesn't sound like that he's taken a step that he can't step back from. But I definitely think the impression is that in the next week, he'll probably show up in Norman, starting classes and, get going with his grad stuff, his grad work, and, start working out with the team, doing all the things he needs to do. So I expect Theo Howard to be part of the team. I want to watch a little bit more of him at UCLA. Obviously, other than when OU played them, UCLA wasn't really on my radar this year. But this is a guy, like I said, that was a huge recruit out of Southern California. Oklahoma recruited him back then, a speed guy, really elusive. He makes a lot of sense, kind of in the role we were just talking about. Maybe he's the guy that makes me wrong about Drake Stoops. He is that guy that can work over the middle, can extend plays, make a 10-yard out into a 30-yard touchdown. I mean, he's that kind of talent. And I don't think Oklahoma's done in the grad transfer market. I expect them to take some more looks, especially with how casual they're being about this 2020 class. There's not a lot of guys that they're kind of kicking the tires on, checking around on. I think if Gary Bryant wanted to get involved, Oklahoma would look down that road as far as a high school player. But with that exception, I've heard no names that I think are really going to pick up steam with Oklahoma. And with that in mind, they're going to have a few spaces left over, especially if a few more transfers come through, like I think we all expect they will. Then Oklahoma can start to look down that road and start to evaluate some guys. I think linebacker gets a look. I think defensive back clearly gets a look. And like we said, it's going to be really tough to find a defensive lineman who can come in and help Oklahoma. But if that was there, I think that's absolutely something Oklahoma would look at.
And going back to Howard, back-to-back years of at least 50 catches as a sophomore and junior. And that's not playing with the best quarterbacks ever in terms of the Bruins. So he could definitely make a real impact there. And then, yeah, I think you do just have to sort of see, especially in secondary, a lot of guys we've all circled in terms of Jordan Parker, Chance Sylvie, Robert Barnes. Do any of them stay? Do any of them leave? And how does that open up things? You feel like the secondary is still where they need to, even though they're bringing in 5 talented guys, it still feels like they need more work there.
Okay. I'm sorry. I'm got some business I'm attending to in the middle of everything.
No, the other guy, and I'm going to blank on his name. I was sitting here trying to look at it while Bob was talking. There is an offensive line transfer from Stanford, and I'm just blanking on his name. He is a guy that I think would get a look as well. Probably could come in, maybe be that guy that gives Oklahoma. I mean, and this is not a R.J. Proctor guy. This is a guy that's probably got some NFL draft aspirations, could solidify the tackle situation a little bit, maybe until Stacey Wilkins is ready or whatever they want to do outside. But he's an interesting guy to keep an eye on, too. And I wish I could say his name, but I am just drawing a complete blank on it right here at the moment.
I think, by the way, I watched that Virginia-Florida game. Virginia was not a bad football team. I mean, they weren't great, but I don't know if the way that R.J. Proctor played in the playoff, I'm surprised he even started for Virginia. He was bad.
Not have the best day.
Yeah.
Of course.
No, Bob, you talked about it during the game, but when Shoshone ran him over at 80 pounds lighter than him, you're like, well, that's the story right there. And it just went back to what we talked about the whole lead up when it looked like OU was going to have a chance to get in. Chase Young against R.J. Proctor is just a horror. I mean, Jalen Hurts might not have gotten to have that speech after the game. He might have, been carried off in an ambulance. It would have been ugly.
I mean, for a program that has produced the level of tackles that Oklahoma has, this is a big deal going into next year. Is improving at that left tackle spot, finding something.
Priority. Was that probably the worst game a Bill Beatenbow offensive line put on tape? I'm talking ever. I thought they were that bad.
In several years, for sure. I mean, you look back at some of those early lines, and it wasn't really his fault.
Yeah, that's
but
fair.
there were some pretty. I mean, you go back to the
Texas
game, by a St. John thing
with matching the talent level.
Sure. Then yeah, I mean, it was
since the Josiah St. John Derek Farniok days. Definitely.
Why are you crying? Farniok, not that good.
We don't.
His mom was hot, though.
And I know it's not a thing where we think this is some sign, but you look at it in general, this was a kind of disappointing year for that offensive line. I mean, they weren't bad or anything, but they were never – you thought as the year went on they would get better and better, and I didn't feel like we saw that. I feel like they were – a lot of the same problems they had in Game 1 they had against LSU. It was very similar issue. They didn't seem like they really ever just gelled and turned into a singular unit. It was just kind of chaotic the whole time.
I mean, see, and that's the thing. Everybody is up in arms about the Big 12 and the competition level. I mean, the way the schedule worked out, the competition ramped up for Oklahoma. I mean, it got tougher. They played tough. Like Oklahoma State had a decent defense this year. I mean, Baylor obviously a very good team. TCU wasn't awful. Iowa State wasn't awful.
But they weren't good either.
No, well,
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Hold on. I'm going to get to my point. Everybody is all upset about the Big 12 and this and that. There is a reason why Oklahoma looked really good early and kind of struggled late because they started playing better teams. But that's the thing. When you look at Clemson, they play in a shitty conference too, but they dominate everybody. And that's, if you're Oklahoma, that's the mindset you've got to have moving forward. Like I see all these giddy Texas fans out there like, OU is done. The Peach Bowl was their downfall. It's all downhill from here. Which you would think as a Texas fan, you would come to realize that maybe bowl success doesn't actually matter all that much. Josh, is Linda cleaning around you? Did you take her on the road?
No, it always amazes me what you guys can hear. Okay, yep, nope, I'm good.
So, no, everybody's, leave the conference. This conference sucks. But if Clemson wins the national championship, they're pretty much going to prove it doesn't matter what conference you play in. It just matters how good you are.
So basically, you're kind of painting a picture that over these next couple years, this is more about Oklahoma, in a way, separating themselves already from more so than what it already is.
Yes.
Which,
like what you've done so far doesn't matter because you're not blowing everyone out on your schedule.
I know the big thing out there, and I've made fun of it on Twitter and everything, but like OU's not leaving the Big 12. They're not calling the Big 12 offices next Monday when they open for business and calling Bob up and saying, "Hey, Bob, we're out." Like that's not happening for at least the next
2025 is when the grants
okay, so the next 5 years. That's just it's not happening. So I think it's one of those things that you have to start. Like you really will look back at this time and think that it's lost time if you don't make that next jump, because now you're recruiting at a level that you should be able to start kind of clearing yourself. And in a way, I do think that there will be some Big 12 schools that not come back to the pack by any means, but get back to where they've been. Like if Oklahoma State gets back Tylan Wallace and Chuba Hubbard, which it seems like is kind of headed in that direction.
I just can't believe Chuba Hubbard's going to come back. I mean,
have you seen all the coaches tweeting about it this morning?
I know they're tweeting out the Canadian flags and everything.
Is this a thing to
I think they're recruiting him.
Recruit him, I see. Yeah.
There's just no reason for him to come back.
That running back group is freaking good. Just censored myself. You've never heard me say freaking.
Running back group. Oh, in the NFL
yeah,
draft,
like
you mean?
That's going into this. That's going into this. Okay. This.
I was going to say at Oklahoma State. No. I mean, but what?
I can guarantee you this. I think he'd start if he came back next year for Oklahoma State.
Nice.
I mean, what is there? What more is there for him to prove?
Watch went to Doak Walker.
He needs to get into the NFL so he can get this 3 years behind him and get a real contract, like every running back has to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, he needs to talk to NFL running backs that realize how short that shelf life is. It's not like we know Oklahoma State's going to put more tread on those tires. I mean, they're going to run him and run him and run him, and that's just a whole year of shelf life plus more chance for an injury.
And guess what? If you bring him back and promise that you're not going to run him and you have another Justice Hill type year, why even bring him back? That's not going to do you any good if you're Oklahoma State. Because Justice Hill's last year was a joke.
It's going to hurt his draft stock.
Yeah. No, Justice Hill's final year at Oklahoma State was terrible. He ran like 11 times a game.
Weird.
He got
hurt.
hurt.
It was just weird.
Remember, he left the Bedlam game that year and never returned.
Eddie, do we call that the Millwood plan?
We can. From here on out, we can. You start referring to it as that.
So, anyway, yeah, I mean, look, if he comes back, they're going to be really good.
Yeah.
That seems like one of the worst decisions you could possibly make if you come back, if you're Chuba Hubbard.
There's a lot of smoke screens coming out of Stillwater. Sean Gleason's tweeting this morning. I thought he was headed to Rutgers.
Yeah.
Like, there's those rumors about Monken out there. I don't think that Monken would go to Oklahoma State if he doesn't have what?
I just like how you're saying
Monken,
Yeah,
Todd Monken, right?
Like Monken.
Todd Monken.
Monken Donuts.
He's a guy that likes saying f*** a lot.
Yes, he does. And that's why I think he wants to stay in the NFL just so he can cuss more, I think.
Well, it just wouldn't make sense if, say Gleason does leave. How does that work with, like, that would make sense that Casey Dunn would want to stay around because he takes over all the responsibility for play calling.
Right.
Monken's not going to come in and not call plays, I wouldn't think.
I would think.
Although,
Monken would become
when you
your
work
OC.
for an idiot like Freddie Kitchens, you don't get to call plays.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. It'll
He worked
be interesting.
for the idiot Dirk Cutter before that.
Will Matt Rule be in Waco next year?
No.
No chance?
I don't want to say no chance like a moron.
Yeah, but no chance.
But no.
The Giants thing just
I'd
makes
say
too much
20%.
sense, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. The Giants thing makes too much sense, which makes me think he'll be the next 3, 2, 1. Which makes me think he will be the next head coach of the Dallas Cowboys.
I think the coach that takes the Cowboys job is going to be an NFL lifer that is used to dealing with, not having a say in personnel and
we
things like that.
kind of talked about that this morning, just as far as like it's going to have to be somebody. The book is out on how Jerry runs a team.
Yeah,
like the guy that takes that job nothing's going to be a surprise about how that thing is run. So it's just going to be basically saying publicly that you're okay with being a puppet.
Well, what's interesting is they've said that if the defensive coordinator for the Ravens gets a job, he's hiring Joe Brady to run his offense.
That's interesting.
Well, that would be good for Oklahoma in the Caleb Williams sweepstakes.
Yeah.
So
I did not realize that Joe Brady wore that gold chain like that. That's something that I really
he really does.
Someone when he sees a gold chain,
it really
they just fall in my eyes.
He looks. I don't even know if he looks like a GA. Like he's just got that look. Like I don't know if son, are you supposed to be here? Like that's the first thing I think of when they show Joe Brady up in the press box next to him.
My first thought was, man, I bet that guy buys a bunch of Black and Milds.
You think he drives like a
beat up Saturn?
No, I'm thinking more like of a Nissan GTR is probably what he drives.
Still has like a bunch of like Tupac.
Oh yeah,
bunch of Tupac CDs.
Oh yeah,
he doesn't even use a cell phone.
He does look. He does look a little Eminem-ish.
The guy can freaking coach though. There's no doubt about that. Him and Minger. That's a tough name. That was a tough name to say.
It's the ends and the ends.
It's tough one to spell.
It's almost as tough as Famatu.
I guess we won't have we'll have a podcast next week. We can talk about the game next week.
Well, the game isn't next week, though.
It's the 13th.
Yeah.
I know. That's what I'm saying. We can talk about it then, next week.
Oh, the
You mean
preview.
preview the game.
Yeah, we don't need to talk about it today.
Basketball, just real quick on that. Sooners getting ready for conference play, Kansas State, coming up Saturday. The big news was that Christian Doolittle got suspended for a game the other day.
It's the second.
What happened? What'd he do? What'd he do?
Just the second time he's missed a game this season. No real cause for concern. Kruger said
he's going to be
flat
back
out.
Saturday, though. We talked to Kruger about it.
And it's a three-headed monster right now with Doolittle, Austin Reeves, Brady Manick, and You rarely have seen all three look good at the same time, but there's been flashes from all three where they've been clearly the best player on the court. The difference, what this is going to boil down to, Davion Harmon, Jamal Bieniemy, they've got to wake up.
We had Lon on the other day on the radio, and he said, we were going through the players, and he said, he had a funny quote about Davion Harmon. He said, yeah, Davion, we finally got him to start taking more realistic shots.
Yes, it's true. The first month of the season, it was just insane what this kid thought he could do when he got into the lane. And now that he's coming off the bench, he's played much better. He had 5 assists Monday, and he just seems more controlled, like he's finally starting to find his rhythm. But the problem is, Alondas Williams starting in his place has been awful as a starter. Both of those guys are playing better coming off the bench.
Hill's been pretty good, though.
I
like what I've seen out of Hill.
Yeah, Victor Iwuakor, Jalen Hill, Kirk West finally has shown up the last couple games.
It was good to see Williams was okay, too, because that was kind of a scary little run-in that he had, banging knees with another guy. What was that, on Tuesday night? Or Monday night? Monday night against Rio Grande Valley. So
here's the biggest question for me. Will Jamal Bieniemy ever recover from this tailspin that he's in?
I thought he played better on Monday night.
He had a 3, and he had 7 points.
I know, it's like 7 points. Like, he was incredible. He had 7 points. That's not supposed to be what Jamal Bieniemy brings to
he
the
made
team.
So many big shots last year.
But then he disappeared down the stretch last year, too. He had that really nice stretch in the middle of the conference play, highlighted by Bedlam.
Didn't he have like 24 points or something?
He was
in a big
great
game
in
last year.
Bedlam.
Was it
Bedlam? Stillwater, he was sensational. And then he kind of faded away because he's not as aggressive. And then he kind of doesn't know when he should be aggressive and when he should back off, and gets a little mental with him. But this team has some pieces. They should go 8 or 9 deep, but you look at Kansas, you look at Baylor, you look at Texas Tech, a lot of good teams in this conference. They fit as like a 7 or 8 seed.
That's what I was going to ask you. 5th or 6th in the conference at best?
At best.
That's best case?
They're 9.
Now that KU survived.
Yeah.
The what?
Now that KU didn't die.
Oh, not, well, yet. We'll see.
You think that if they keep flying Swift Airlines, they're putting their life in their own hands.
Yeah, that's true, too. Is that what they were flying?
Swift, yeah.
I mean,
why aren't they just flying private? You can't tell me that Kansas doesn't have a couple boosters.
Adidas had to stop giving them the money because the FBI got wise.
But you look at the Sooners, they're 9-3, and they've got a 1-point win against Central Florida, 2-point win against North Texas, barely got out of William and Mary. This could easily be like a 7-5 team.
Yeah.
They might be what everyone thought they were heading into the season.
Which is a 8-9 matchup in the NCAA tournament.
8-9 matchup in the Big 12 tournament, and kind of hoping. Their net rating has dropped a little. They were in the mid-30s when it first came out, but then they had that Wichita State and Creighton week. They're going to need to not have a February swoon to have any chance to make the tournament.
They're a better team to me. Like, when Brady Manick becomes the guy down the stretch, I like him a lot better than Austin Reeves, because Reeves is just a wild card sometimes. I mean, I don't know if I want him in the clutch.
I don't know if I can handle your Austin Reeves slander.
We'll not stand for this.
You know, he did get a technical for slapping a guy on a follow-through of his own shot.
That's fault. That's not his fault.
I mean, he's a little extra sometimes.
The thing with Manick is sometimes he falls in love with just being that shooter instead of, those dunks he had Monday. That's nice. Do it in conference play.
Yeah.
It's a much different game what they're about to experience than what Rio Grande Valley. But there are some nice pieces down there. You got to win your home games and then hope to steal a couple.
And I think everybody thought Davion Harmon would be a bigger contributor than he is at
I think that's probably fair.
Very fair. And he's got to figure it out. I think he's slowly getting there, but what he was 3 weeks ago was atrocious, and he sort of knew it. So now he's coming off the bench. He's still playing about 25, 30 minutes, so he's doing his part in that regard, but he's got to figure out how to balance being a passer and a scorer, because there's games he tries to do one or the other. He's got to be the mix. I
can't even remember. Was he preseason newcomer of the year in the conference, or was somebody from Kansas or Tech or something?
I don't think so. I don't even know. Did they give out a preseason newcomer?
It's a good question. I just assumed that they did.
But Kansas State is 7-5, lost so much from last year. You got to get a win Saturday, or it could
And
go
you have to go to the game
downhill quickly.
unless you have ESPN Plus, because this is an ESPN Plus game.
Chris Clark from Virginia Tech. Texas Tech, Virginia Tech transfer.
Oh, okay.
Was a preseason newcomer.
Interesting. All right. Any other official business you guys want to get to before we get out of here?
Just waited on Creed Humphrey, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that
I'm going to tell you, if he doesn't declare, I'm going to find a way to get him ineligible because we need money.
I think it's.
I'm going to report some stuff that happened that only I know about, so he'll have to leave.
I think it'd be accurate to say that we all three think he's coming back.
Yes.
Josh, are you included? Okay.
We're good.
No, I am. That seems to be what I'm hearing. Sorry, guys, I put you on speaker. I was looking for a couple things, but yeah.
You don't care about basketball?
That's what it feels like.
Do you travel with Linda?
No, I do not.
Okay, she
There
doesn't
was no
become like a
traveling with
maid
Linda.
on the road.
There was a what you heard earlier. There's a bouncy ball in the room I was in, and I was messing with it. I was flipping it up and down. I couldn't believe you actually heard it. So
When you don't have a green card.
but-
It's hard to travel around.
can't cross state lines, and we flew. So tough deal.
Are you in
Orlando.
an exotic location?
Right. What?
We don't even know
We don't know where
you
Josh
do or where you are. Or...
Is it in Oklahoma?
I am about equidistant between 35 and Stillwater off of 51. So no, I am not anywhere exotic. This is like our Christmas week with the Oklahoma folks. We have not, I didn't get a chance to come up and see them because Laney had school the week that we usually come up. And then you had me getting around earlier this week to Orlando and San Antonio. So this was like the few days we could actually get it in. So we were up seeing everybody this week.
Interesting statement by the McQuestion family that school's more important than the birth of Jesus Christ, but that's okay.
Oh, Eddie. No religion, sir. You're banned for a week.
True. Touche. No, I think that's it, though. I think we're good.
All right. Well, we appreciate everybody. Sorry we kind of missed the normal Wednesday date, but with New Year's and Josh's travel, we wanted to get you as much information as possible.
I think it worked out.
About the camps, and then, of course, Chandler Morris committing. So we'll continue to monitor what goes on with the quarterback in 2021. The good news is you got plenty of time if things change. So going to be interesting to watch it all go through. Signing day coming up as well. You got the national championship coming, but a lot of Sooner hoops. And stay tuned. The message board, Theo Howard, still kind of tracking that, waiting to see if and when that becomes official. And any other news that might happen with transfer portals or things like that. So thanks, everybody, for listening to the MidFirst Bank. Go to midfirst.com and midfirst.com/U40. Sign up for that OU Rewards credit card. And if you do it at a branch location, you'll get a free Bluetooth speaker when you sign up as well. So thanks for listening to the Unofficial 40. We'll see you guys next week right here on Soonerscoop.com.